He was caged, nameless, and moments from being erased, labeled unfit, unstable, and unworthy of love. No one saw the quiet German shepherd's pain. No one questioned why a dog so still could carry eyes so loud with sorrow, until a worn-down mechanic, battling ghosts of his own, stood in the crowd and whispered a name the dog had never heard, but somehow recognized. Travis Whitaker had spent his days fixing broken engines, not broken souls. 3 years after burying his wife on the hillside cemetery overlooking Pine Ridge, he found himself drawn to a county shelter's disposal event for failed service dogs. When his eyes met those of Canine 47, the silent shepherd in the last cage, something stirred in his fractured memory that sent ice through his veins. Those eyes mirrored his own, a soul already resigned to its fate, yet silently screaming to be remembered. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Pine Ridge. Colorado sat nestled at the base of the Rocky Mountains like a forgotten chess piece. A town where winter lingered 9 months of the year and everyone knew the weight of everyone else's silence. Snow had already begun to dust the peaks in mid-September, a reminder that in these parts, cold was the natural state of things. Travis's garage stood at the edge of town, an old converted barn with a hand-painted sign that read, "Whitaker's Auto Repair." Inside, tools hung in perfect order on pegboards, socket wrenches arranged by size, screwdrivers aligned like soldiers, a meticulous organization that stood in stark contrast to the chaos of his inner life. The concrete floor was swept clean each evening, motor oil stains scrubbed away, as if erasing evidence of the day could somehow erase memory itself. At 45, Travis moved with the deliberate precision of a man who had trained his body to compensate for an injured soul. His hands, calloused and strong, could diagnose an engine's ailment by sound alone. His military short hair had grayed at the temples, and deep lines had formed around eyes that rarely met those of others. The honorable discharge papers from the Marines were tucked in a drawer he no longer opened. His cabin behind the garage told the story of absence more than presence. 1 plate, 1 cup in the dish rack, the bedroom containing only essentials. Photographs once displayed on the mantel now lay face down in a drawer, including his wedding portrait with Emily, whose laughter once filled these rooms before the icy mountain road took her away 3 years ago. Sheriff Bill Carter was the only person who regularly checked on Travis, stopping by with transparent excuses about his cruiser making strange noises. Their conversations rarely ventured beyond weather and engines, but the sheriff's visits were the closest thing to friendship Travis permitted himself. Nightmares from his service frequently left Travis sitting on his porch at 3 in the morning, a cold cup of coffee in hand, watching the stars wheel overhead. On those nights, the silence of the mountains pressed down like a weight, reminding him that even in a town surrounded by people, it was possible to disappear without leaving. Since Emily's death, he had mastered the art of being present while remaining invisible, a ghost still tethered to the physical world only by the engines he fixed and the routines he maintained. The county animal facility was a low, gray building that seemed designed to repel both hope and attachment. Travis sat in his truck for 15 minutes before finally cutting the engine. The flyer that had brought him here was crumpled in his pocket. Decommissioned Canine Unit's Public Viewing and Adoption Event, words that made living creatures sound like surplus equipment. Inside, Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on concrete floors that smelled of industrial disinfectant. Families with children moved from cage to cage, some looking for pets, others treating the visit like a trip to the zoo. Men in uniforms with clipboards discussed the animals in clinical terms: service history, behavioral assessments, disposal protocols. "These ones are from the military training program," a staff member explained to a couple. "Most are fine for families, but a few didn't make the cut for civilian transition. Those are marked with red tags." Travis moved away from the crowd, drifting toward the back row of cages where fewer people gathered. The dogs in this section barked and paced, jumping against metal doors, desperate for attention. All except one. In the corner cage, a German shepherd sat perfectly still. Unlike the others, he didn't move when Travis approached, didn't bark, didn't wag his tail. He simply stared straight ahead with eyes that seemed to look through the world rather than at it. His coat was dull, with patches of fur missing along his flank. The tag on his cage read only K947, followed by a list of evaluations: failed obedience assessment, failed civilian integration, failed bonding protocol, not suitable for adoption. Travis stopped. Something about the dog's stillness felt familiar. Not the excited stillness of anticipation, but the heavy stillness of resignation. It was the posture of someone who had stopped asking why pain comes, who had settled into the certainty that it always would. "That one's not available," a young attendant said, appearing at Travis's elbow. "He's on today's final list." "Final list?" Travis asked, though he already knew. "Euthanasia, scheduled for 3 o'clock. He's failed every assessment. Won't respond to commands. Doesn't bond with handlers. Some dogs just can't adjust to civilian life after what they've seen." Travis barely heard the words. He was caught in the gaze of the shepherd, whose eyes suddenly shifted to meet his. In that moment, something passed between them, a recognition that transcended explanation. Without conscious thought, Travis found himself whispering a name: Axel. The dog's ears twitched forward, his head tilted slightly, his eyes, previously empty, suddenly focused. "He knows that name," Travis said, his voice stronger. The attendant frowned. "Sir, there's no name on his intake forms, just the ID number. He's never responded to any handler." But Travis wasn't listening. He was watching as the German shepherd slowly rose to his feet and moved toward the front of the cage, eyes locked on Travis, not lunging or barking like the other dogs, but moving with deliberate purpose. A voice crackled over the facility's speakers. "Attention visitors! The following animals are scheduled for immediate processing and are no longer available for public viewing. Please clear areas containing units K947, K952, and K955. 2 handlers approached with leashes and a wheeled transport cage. "Sir, you need to step back now," one instructed Travis. "This one's not adoptable. He's failed all behavioral protocols." "He responded to me," Travis insisted, voice rising. "He knew the name I called." "That's not possible," the handler replied mechanically. "This animal has shown no response to any stimuli during processing." As they unlocked the cage door, Travis stepped forward again. "Axel," he called more firmly. The dog froze, then turned his head sharply toward Travis. The handler paused, keyring dangling from his hand. "See that?" Travis pressed. "He knows that name." A small crowd had begun to gather, drawn by the confrontation. The facility director appeared, clipboard in hand, expression sour beneath fluorescent lights. "What's the problem here?" he demanded. "This dog responds to him," the younger handler admitted reluctantly. Travis held the director's gaze. "I want to adopt him." "Absolutely not. That animal has failed every assessment. He's unstable, potentially dangerous." "You were going to kill him anyway," Travis interrupted. "What difference does it make if I take him?" "Sir, there are liability issues. I'll sign whatever you want." A woman in the watching crowd spoke up. "Let him try. What's there to lose?" The director's jaw tightened. Finally, he thrust a clipboard at Travis. "Your responsibility, your liability. We take no responsibility for what happens after he leaves this facility." Travis signed without reading the forms. When the cage was opened, he knelt slowly, extending his hand. "Axel," he said softly. The German shepherd moved forward with caution. The watching crowd held its breath. Then, with gentle deliberation, the dog pressed his head against Travis's chest, not frantically, not desperately, but with the quiet certainty of recognition. A murmur passed through the onlookers. The director turned away, disgusted or defeated or both. Travis placed a gentle hand on Axel's back, feeling the curve of ribs beneath dull fur. "Let's go home," he said quietly. And together they walked out of the facility, past staring faces and whispered comments, into the cold mountain air where snow had begun to fall. The drive back to Pine Ridge passed in silence. Travis glanced occasionally at the passenger seat where Axel sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on the road ahead. No panting, no curious sniffing of new surroundings, just that same controlled vigilance that seemed more like a soldier's watchfulness than a dog's excitement. Travis's cabin appeared through the falling snow, a small rectangle of weathered wood backed against dense pine forest. He parked beside the garage and opened the truck door, uncertain what to expect. Axel remained seated until Travis said his name, then stepped carefully to the ground, movements precise and deliberate. "This is it," Travis said, feeling oddly self-conscious, talking to a dog. "Not much, but it's quiet." Inside, Travis filled a bowl with water and set it on the kitchen floor. Axel watched, but didn't approach. Travis found an old blanket and arranged it in the corner of the living room. Still, Axel remained standing, alert, as if waiting for instructions rather than comfort. "You can relax," Travis told him. "Nobody's evaluating you here." That night, a thunderstorm rolled through the mountains. Travis woke to the crash of thunder, momentarily disoriented until lightning illuminated the bedroom. He sat up, listening for the dog, and realized he hadn't heard a sound from him since they'd arrived. Most dogs would be unsettled by such a storm. In the living room, lightning revealed Axel sitting in the exact position Travis had left him upright, facing the door, eyes open, not cowering from the thunder, not sleeping despite the late hour. "Hey," Travis said softly. The dog's ears turned toward his voice, but his posture remained unchanged. "You don't have to stand guard. We're safe here," as if to contradict him. Axel suddenly stiffened, a low rumble building in his chest. Then, without warning, the dog's legs buckled. Legs. His powerful body collapsed to the floor, muscles spasming briefly before he regained control and pushed himself upright again. Travis knelt beside him, concerned. "What was that? Are you sick?" In the morning light, Travis examined Axel more carefully. Despite the rigid posture, he could see the dog's ribs too clearly beneath his fur. A scar ran along his left flank, and a patch of fur was missing near his shoulder, revealing pink skin. But it was the metal tag half hidden in the fur of his neck that caught Travis's attention. Carefully, he worked the tag free from the dense fur. It wasn't a standard identification tag, but something heavier, with strange markings etched into the metal, a compass-like symbol with irregular lines radiating outward. The tag appeared deliberately concealed beneath Axel's collar, attached with a wire rather than a ring. Travis studied it, uneasy. The tag seemed intentionally hidden, and the markings weren't any military or law enforcement insignia he recognized. Dr. Sarah Caldwell's veterinary clinic occupied a small building on Pine Ridge's main street. The waiting room was empty when Travis arrived with Axel, who followed at his heel with military precision. Sarah Caldwell was a woman whose calm competence suggested experience beyond her 40 years. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore a simple wedding band that Travis knew was a memorial rather than a marriage. Her husband, also a veteran, had died overseas. "Travis Whitaker," she said with genuine warmth. "Haven't seen you since Emily's dog passed." Travis finished. "Been a while." Her eyes moved to Axel, professional assessment replacing friendly greeting. "And who's this?" "His name's Axel. Just got him yesterday from the county facility." Dr. Caldwell led them to an examination room and patted the metal table. "Let's have a look." Axel didn't need help mounting the table. He leaped up with athletic precision despite his apparent condition. Dr. Caldwell began her examination, hands moving expertly over the dog's body. She paused at the scarred areas, frowning. "These aren't accidents," she noted. "These are surgical, precise incisions." She continued her examination, checking Axel's eyes, ears, and mouth. When she pressed gently on his abdomen, Axel flinched, a small whine escaping before he regained his composure. "Hold him steady," she instructed, retrieving a portable scanner. She ran the device over Axel's shoulder, watching the readings. Her expression changed, professionalism giving way to concern. "Travis, where exactly did you get him?" "County facility. They were putting him down. Said he failed all his tests." She set the scanner down carefully. "This dog has been injected with something recently, within the past 24 hours. Travis felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "What do you mean, injected?" Dr. Caldwell's voice lowered. "I mean, someone administered a compound to him shortly before you adopted him. It's why he collapsed last night." She paused. "This wasn't standard euthanasia preparation. This was something else. Can you tell what it is?" She shook her head. "I need to run tests. But based on the preliminary readings and his symptoms, it's a delayed action compound, probably designed to ensure he'd be dead within a few days even if he left the facility." Travis stared at her. "Why would anyone do that?" "That's what concerns me." She studied Axel with new intensity. "Travis, I wasn't always a small-town vet. I worked with military working dogs before coming here. This dog has all the markers of elite training. The posture, the response patterns, the surgical modifications for equipment attachment. She pointed to marks on Axel's body. These aren't randomly placed. These are strategic attachment points for tactical gear. Her finger moved to the bare patch on his shoulder. And this is where they typically place tracking implants. Travis showed her the metal tag he'd found. Dr. Caldwell examined it, turning it over in her fingers. This isn't standard identification, she confirmed. This looks like a unit designation from a specialized program. She returned the tag, her expression grave. Travis, I think you've adopted more than a failed service dog. I think Axel was part of something classified, and someone made sure he was scheduled for disposal to keep it that way. She turned back to Axel, drawing a blood sample with practiced efficiency. Based on what I'm seeing, he has approximately 72 hours before this compound causes systemic failure. I can try to create a counteragent, but I'll need time. As they left the clinic, Travis noticed a black SUV parked across the street, engine running despite the cold. When he looked directly at it, the vehicle pulled away. At home. Travis called the one person he thought might help make sense of the strange tag, Mac Thompson, former K-9 police handler who'd retired to Pine Ridge 5 years ago. The gruff ex-cop agreed to meet him that evening. Travis hung up the phone and looked at Axel, who sat watching him with those eerily intelligent eyes. "Looks like someone wanted to make sure you didn't make it out alive," he told the dog. "Question is, why?" The snow intensified throughout the afternoon, coating Pine Ridge in a fresh layer of white that muffled sound and softened edges. Travis spent the hours watching Axel, noting how the dog moved with purpose even in rest. When Axel crossed the room, it wasn't with the casual meandering of a pet, but with the calculated efficiency of a soldier conserving energy. In one striking moment, Axel positioned himself at the window, body tensed, ears forward. Travis followed his gaze but saw only swirling snow. Yet something had triggered the dog's alertness. Minutes later, a delivery truck rumbled past. Axel had heard it long before it appeared. By evening, Travis had established a makeshift bed in the living room where he could monitor Axel through the night. The dog had eaten sparingly from the food Travis offered, and twice more had experienced the concerning tremors Dr. Caldwell had warned about. "Hang in there," Travis told him, gently running a hand along the shepherd's back. "We'll figure this out." The knock at the door came at precisely 7 o'clock. Mac Thompson stomped snow from his boots on the porch, his broad frame filling the doorway as Travis let him in. At 50, Mac carried himself with the squared shoulders and direct gaze of his police background, though retirement had softened his midsection. "So, this is the famous dog," Mac said, eyeing Axel, who had immediately risen to a standing position, body alert. "This is Axel," Travis confirmed. Watching as the two sized each other up, Mac made no move to approach the dog, respecting the invisible boundary Axel had established. "Military trained," Mac observed. "You can tell by the stance. Police dogs are alert, but military dogs stand ready." He settled into Travis's worn armchair. "Show me this tag you mentioned." Travis handed over the metal disc. Mac turned it in his thick fingers, brow furrowing as he studied the markings. "Where'd you find this?" "Hidden in his collar." Mac's expression darkened. This isn't standard issue. Not Army, not Marines, not even Special Ops that I've seen. He pointed to the compass-like etchings. This looks like a private contractor symbol. There were rumors about programs that got outsourced when official channels got too restrictive. Training methods that wouldn't fly under military regulations. What kind of methods? Mac handed the tag back. The kind that produce dogs that don't bark, don't whine, and don't disobey, ever. His eyes shifted to Axel. Except this one apparently did something to get himself kicked out. The facility said he failed all his tests. Mac snorted. These programs don't fail dogs out. Travis? They eliminate problems. He leaned forward. My advice: stay away from military dogs with mysterious pasts. No good comes from digging into these things. As Mac stood to leave, Axel suddenly lunged forward, positioning himself between the door and Travis. The movement wasn't aggressive. He didn't growl or bare teeth, but the message was clear. No one would approach Travis without going through him first. See that? Mac said quietly. That's not just training. That's bonding. He's chosen to protect you. He moved carefully around Axel. That's rare in a dog with his background, maybe unique. At the door, Mac paused. Travis, whatever this dog was part of, someone went to a lot of trouble to make sure he didn't leave that facility alive. You'd be smart to ask yourself why. After Mac left, Travis settled on the couch, turning the tag over in his fingers. Axel lay at his feet, eyes open despite the late hour. Outside, the wind howled through pine branches, a lonesome sound that matched Travis's mood. What happened to you? He asked the dog quietly. What did you do that was so unforgivable? Morning brought Sheriff Bill Carter to Travis's door, his cruiser idling in the driveway. The sheriff's weathered face carried the official mask he wore for county business. Got a complaint about a dangerous dog. Travis, he said without preamble. Military washout, potentially aggressive. Sound familiar? Travis tensed. Who complained? Anonymous call. The sheriff's eyes moved past Travis to where Axel sat watching them. That him? That's Axel, and he's not dangerous. The sheriff removed his hat, dropping the official pretense. Look, Travis, I don't care if you've got a three-headed wolf in there as long as it doesn't cause trouble, but someone does care. And they knew exactly which channels to use to bring official attention to it. Meaning someone with pull is interested in your new dog. The call came through county channels but originated from a government exchange. He lowered his voice. Watch your back, and maybe keep that dog close. After the sheriff left, Travis called Dr. Caldwell to check on her progress. Her voice on the phone was tight with concern. I've identified the compound, she said. It's a specialized neurotoxin that breaks down the autonomic nervous system over time. 72 hours was optimistic. Travis, based on Axel's latest blood work, we're looking at 60 hours, maximum. Can you counteract it? I'm working on it. This isn't something from a standard formulary. I've got calls into some old colleagues. She paused. Travis, have you noticed anyone watching your place? The memory of the black SUV flashed in his mind. Maybe. Why? Because someone broke into my office last night. Nothing taken. But my computer was accessed and Axel's blood samples are missing. A chill ran through Travis that had nothing to do with the mountain cold. Are you safe? For now, but whoever did this knows we're on to them. Her voice lowered. I'll call when I have something. Be careful. Travis spent the morning scouring his property, looking for signs of surveillance. He found nothing obvious, but the weather had covered any tracks that might have been left in the snow. Inside, he packed a bag with essentials if they needed to leave quickly. He'd be ready. Axel stayed close, occasionally pressing his body against Travis's leg as if reassuring him of his presence. Despite the dog's stoic demeanor, Travis noticed the tremors were coming more frequently now, and twice Axel had stumbled, his coordination deteriorating. We're going to fix this, Travis promised him, though the words felt hollow. In the afternoon, Travis drove into town, Axel beside him in the truck. He parked behind Dr. Caldwell's clinic, entering through the back door as she'd instructed. Sarah's normally tidy office showed subtle signs of the break-in papers slightly out of alignment, a drawer not fully closed. She looked up from her microscope, fatigue evident in the shadows beneath her eyes. I've been analyzing the blood samples I saved, she said, skipping any greeting. The toxin is complex but not indestructible. I've identified a potential counteragent, but I need time to synthesize it. She led Travis to an examination room where equipment hummed quietly. Axel needs supportive care in the meantime. I can give him something to manage the symptoms, but we're battling the clock. As she prepared an injection, Travis noticed her hands trembling slightly. Sarah, you don't have to risk this. I can take him somewhere else. She met his eyes, resolve hardening her face. I spent 6 years working with military dogs in Afghanistan. Travis, I watched handlers form bonds with these animals that defied explanation, saw dogs save lives by sacrificing their own, and I watched the military discard them when they were no longer useful. She drew the medication with surgical precision. So, yes, I do have to do this. She administered the injection with gentle hands, speaking softly to Axel, who endured the procedure without movement. This will help with the tremors. Try to keep him calm. Limit exertion. As Travis prepared to leave, Sarah handed him a small flash drive. Everything I've learned about the toxin is on here, plus my progress on the counteragent. If anything happens to me, take this to Dr. Marcus in Denver. He'll know what to do. Nothing's going to happen to you. Travis insisted. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Just take it. The evening brought heavy snowfall and a sense of foreboding that Travis couldn't shake. He secured the doors and windows of his cabin, drawing curtains against the gathering darkness. Axel lay near the wood stove, the warmth seeming to ease his discomfort slightly. Travis was cleaning his hunting rifle, a precaution that felt increasingly necessary when headlights swept across the window. He dimmed the lights and moved to the edge of the curtain. A vehicle had pulled up outside. Not the sheriff's cruiser, not Sarah's Subaru, but a nondescript sedan that Travis didn't recognize. Axel rose immediately, body tense despite his weakened state. But instead of moving toward the door, he retreated to the darkest corner of the room, pressing himself against the wall as if trying to disappear. A knock at the door. Travis hesitated, then called out, "Who is it?" "Package delivery." came the response. A male voice Travis didn't recognize. "Little late for deliveries," Travis replied, rifle ready but out of sight. "Just leave it on the porch." Silence. Then the sound of something being placed against the door. Footsteps crunched away through snow. The vehicle's engine started. Headlights swept across the cabin once more, then disappeared down the long driveway. Travis waited 10 minutes before approaching the door. Axel remained in the corner, watching with unblinking intensity. Finally, Travis opened the door a crack. A manila envelope lay on the porch, unmarked. He retrieved it quickly, locking the door behind him. Inside was a single photograph, a military working dog in tactical gear standing beside a uniformed handler whose face had been methodically scratched out of the image. The dog was unmistakably Axel, younger and in peak condition. Scrawled on the back were the words, "You weren't supposed to find him." Travis felt the blood drain from his face. He turned to Axel, who had approached silently and was staring at the photograph. His ears pressed flat against his head. For the first time since Travis had met him, Axel whined a soft, pained sound that seemed to emerge from someplace deep and wounded. "You recognize this, don't you?" Travis asked quietly. Axel looked from the photo to Travis, and in that moment, the barrier of species seemed to dissolve. The understanding between them transcended words. Axel had remembered something, and it brought him pain. Travis tried calling Mac but got no answer. He left messages, each more urgent than the last. By midnight, concern had hardened into worry. Mac had said he'd look into the tag further, but now he'd gone silent, unable to sleep. Travis sat with his back against the wall, rifle across his knees, Axel beside him. The dog's condition was deteriorating. His breathing had become labored, and the tremors were more frequent despite Dr. Caldwell's medication. Dawn brought no relief. Travis's calls to Mac still went unanswered. When he tried Dr. Caldwell, her phone rang endlessly. Something was wrong. He loaded Axel into his truck and drove to Mac's small house on the edge of town. The property was silent. Mac's truck parked haphazardly in the drive as if he'd arrived in a hurry. Travis approached the front door cautiously, noting it stood slightly ajar despite the cold. "Mac?" he called. No answer. Inside, the house was in disarray, not the chaos of a struggle, but the methodical disturbance of a search. Drawers pulled out, contents examined, cushions removed from furniture. No sign of Mac. In the home office, Travis found Mac's computer still running, screen glowing with an open document. The text described something called Operation Guardian, a specialized training program for military working dogs designed for enhanced compliance and specialized tactical deployment. The document was incomplete, as if Mac had been interrupted while writing it. On the desk lay a notepad with an address hastily scribbled on it: Western Slope Military Storage Facility, Restricted Access. Travis recognized it as an old base that had officially closed years ago but remained under private security. The drive to Dr. Caldwell's clinic was tense, Axel lying weakly on the passenger seat. The tremors had worsened, and twice he'd lost consciousness briefly before struggling back to awareness. The clinic was locked, lights off, Travis peered through the windows but saw no movement inside. He called Sarah's cell phone again, and this time heard the distinct sound of ringing coming from inside the building. Sarah never went anywhere without her phone. Travis was contemplating breaking in when his own phone rang. Sheriff Carter's voice came through, tight with concern. "Travis, where are you?" "Looking for Sarah Caldwell. She's not at the clinic." A heavy pause. "That's why I'm calling. Sarah's in the hospital. Someone ran her off the road last night on the mountain pass. She's in surgery now." Travis felt the world tilt beneath him. Was it an accident? The skid marks tell a different story. Someone forced her off the road deliberately. The sheriff's voice lowered. "Travis, before they took her in, she was conscious enough to say one thing. Tell Travis they know about the dog." What the hell is going on? Travis leaned against his truck, ice forming in his veins that had nothing to do with the winter air. Someone's trying to make sure Axel doesn't survive, and they're eliminating anyone who tries to help him. That makes no sense. It's just a dog. "No," Travis said, watching Axel struggle to remain conscious on the seat. "He's not just a dog. He knows something, or saw something. Something someone is willing to kill for." The silence stretched between them. "Finally," the sheriff sighed. "Where are you headed?" Travis thought of the address in Mac's office. "I need to find out what Operation Guardian was, and why Axel was part of it. Whatever you're planning, wait for me. This isn't something to handle alone. Sarah has 48 hours, max, to create a counteragent, and she's in surgery. Axel has less time than that." Travis's decision crystallized. "I can't wait." He hung up and climbed back into the truck. Axel lifted his head weakly, eyes questioning. "We're going to find answers," Travis told him, starting the engine. "And then we're going to find whoever did this to you." As they pulled away from the clinic, Travis noticed a black SUV turning onto the street behind them, the same vehicle he'd seen watching his property. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. The hunt had begun, but who was predator and who was prey remained to be seen. The Western Slope Military Storage Facility loomed in the distance, a collection of gray buildings nestled against the mountainside, surrounded by chain-link fencing topped with barbed wire. From his vantage point on the Forest Service road a quarter-mile away, Travis studied the compound through binoculars. What had once been a bustling military installation now appeared largely abandoned, with only 2 vehicles visible in the parking area and a single guard booth at the entrance. Snow continued to fall, obscuring visibility and coating the pines in heavy white blankets. Beside Travis in the truck, Axel's condition had worsened dramatically. The shepherd's breathing came in labored pants, his once alert eyes now glazed with pain. Twice in the past hour, his entire body had seized with tremors so violent that Travis feared they might be the end. "Stay with me," Travis murmured, resting his hand on Axel's head. The dog leaned weakly into his touch. Travis checked his watch. 46 hours had passed since Dr. Caldwell's diagnosis. The window was closing. Sheriff Carter had called twice, warning Travis not to approach the facility, promising he was working official channels to get answers. But official channels took time, and time was the one thing Axel didn't have. The black SUV had followed them for 20 miles out of Pine Ridge before Travis managed to lose it on a series of unmarked logging roads. He wasn't naive enough to believe they'd given up. They were likely regrouping, perhaps calling in reinforcements, whatever secrets lay within that facility. Someone was determined to protect them. Travis reached into the glove compartment and removed a small leather case containing a set of lockpicks, a souvenir from his military days he'd never thought he'd use again. He tucked them into his jacket pocket alongside the hunting knife he always carried. The rifle was secured beneath the truck seat, a last resort he hoped to avoid. "Here's the plan," he told Axel, as if the dog could understand every word. "We go in through the maintenance access on the east side. The snow will cover our tracks. We find whatever records they have on Operation Guardian, and we find out what they gave you and how to stop it." Axel's eyes fixed on Travis, a glimmer of his former alertness returning briefly. "If this goes sideways," Travis continued, his voice rough, "I want you to know you're a good dog, the best, and whatever you did to get discarded, I'm betting it was the right thing." With that, he started the truck and drove a circuitous route to the far side of the facility, using the trees as cover. Half a mile from the fence, he parked in a grove of pines and covered the vehicle with a tarp from his emergency kit. Snow would do the rest to conceal it. The trek to the fence was arduous. Travis moved slowly through knee-deep snow, supporting Axel, who struggled to keep pace. The dog's loyalty was evident in every painful step despite his failing body. He remained at Travis's side, pushing forward with a determination that belied his condition. The maintenance access point was exactly where Travis expected a service gate set apart from the main entrance, designed for utility vehicles. The padlock was standard government issue, yielding to his picks after several tense minutes. Travis eased the gate open just enough for them to slip through, then secured it behind them. The facility grounds were eerily silent, their footprints the only disruption in the fresh snow. Travis moved from building to building, keeping to shadows, checking designations on doors. Most were storage equipment, vehicles, supplies, but at the far end stood a low concrete structure with blackened windows and a reinforced door marked simply K9 Training. As they approached, Axel suddenly stopped, his body going rigid. A low whine escaped him, so faint it was almost inaudible. "You know this place," Travis whispered. It wasn't a question. The door was secured with an electronic keypad beyond Travis's lock-picking abilities. He circled the building, looking for another entrance, and found a narrow window at ground level, likely for ventilation. Using his knife, he worked the aging seal loose until the window gave way. "Tight fit," he told Axel, "but it's our only shot." Travis went first, squeezing through the opening and dropping into darkness. He used his phone's flashlight to scan the room a maintenance area with pipes and electrical panels, then reached back to help Axel through. The dog's weakened state made the maneuver difficult, but eventually they both stood inside the facility. A door led from the maintenance room into a darkened hallway. As they moved forward, motion sensors detected their presence, triggering dim emergency lighting that cast long shadows on institutional green walls. The air held the stale smell of abandonment, overlaid with chemical disinfectant. The first room they encountered appeared to be a medical facility examination tables with restraint attachments, cabinets of equipment, and a pharmaceutical storage area that had been emptied of its contents. The clinical sterility of the space was disturbed only by a single chair that lay overturned, as if someone had left in a hurry. Travis searched quickly, finding nothing but empty drawers and blank computer screens in a trash can. However, he discovered a crumpled printout with a list of compounds and dosages. the heading partially visible, Canine Compliance Protocol. In the next room, Travis found what appeared to be a control center monitors mounted on walls, workstations with computers and filing cabinets. Unlike the medical room, this one showed signs of recent use: a coffee cup with liquid still inside, papers organized on desks. "Someone's been here," Travis murmured to Axel, who remained unnaturally still, eyes fixed on a door at the far end of the room. Travis tried the computers, but they required passwords he couldn't guess. The filing cabinets yielded more results folders containing training protocols, performance evaluations, and handler assignments for what appeared to be dozens of working dogs. He flipped through them quickly, looking for any mention of Axel or K947. Nothing. Either the records had been removed, or Axel had been part of a program so classified it wasn't documented here. The door that had captured Axel's attention was marked "Training Floor, Authorized Personnel Only." Travis approached it cautiously, listening for any sound from the other side. Silence. He tried the handle locked. Using his picks again, Travis worked the lock until it gave with a soft click. He eased the door open, revealing a vast open space beyond. As light spilled in from the hallway, Axel began to tremble, not from the toxin this time, but from what appeared to be memory. The training floor was immense, half the size of a football field, with concrete floors and high ceilings. Along the perimeter stood various training apparatus hurdles, tunnels, climbing structures, but it was the center of the room that drew Travis's attention. There, a circle had been painted on the floor, approximately 20 feet in diameter. Within that circle were two smaller circles, each containing a human-shaped target. One target wore the distinct outline of combat gear, while the other was clearly civilian in appearance. "A decision point," Travis murmured, understanding dawning. "They were training you to choose between targets." Axel stood at the edge of the room, his body rigid with tension. Travis could almost see the memories playing behind those intelligent eyes, the commands, the expectations, the consequences of choice. A sound from outside snapped Travis back to the present. The crunch of tires on snow. Someone had arrived. He moved quickly to a window, staying low. A black SUV, identical to the one that had followed them, had pulled up to the building's entrance. A second vehicle followed, this one a silver sedan. "We need to move," Travis told Axel. They retreated from the training floor, seeking another exit. As they re-entered the control room, Travis noticed a door he'd overlooked before, partially hidden behind a filing cabinet. It was labeled "Records Restricted Access." Despite the approaching danger, Travis couldn't leave without checking it. He forced the lock. His movements hurried now, and slipped inside with Axel. The records room was small, climate-controlled, and lined with shelves of binders and hard drives. A single desk dominated the center, its surface bare except for a laptop computer that hummed softly, recently used. Travis went straight to a section labeled Guardian, the program Mac had mentioned. He pulled a binder and began flipping through it, scanning for anything that might explain Axel's situation. What he found made his blood run cold. Operation Guardian was not just a training program, it was an experimental initiative designed to create K9 units capable of making autonomous targeting decisions in the field. Dogs were conditioned to distinguish between combatants and civilians based on subtle cues, then deployed in situations where human handlers couldn't directly control their actions. Travis turned the page and found a section titled Failures and Terminations. There, listed among a dozen other ID numbers, was K947. Beside the number was a brief notation. Subject demonstrated aberrant decision-making in live exercise. Refused to engage designated target when civilian proxy was at risk. Recommended for immediate termination as pattern indicates fundamental failure of compliance conditioning. Attached was an after-action report detailing an exercise where Axel had been commanded to attack a designated target, but had instead positioned himself between the target and a civilian stand-in, refusing the direct order. The report was signed by Program Director Richard Westfield. Travis's heart pounded. Axel hadn't failed. He'd chosen to protect an innocent rather than blindly follow orders. And for that, he'd been sentenced to death. A photograph slipped from the binder, a group shot of military personnel with their canine partners. Travis recognized Axel immediately, standing beside a young handler whose face looked hauntingly familiar. With a jolt, Travis realized why the handler resembled an older man in the same photo. A man identified in the caption as Richard Westfield. Voices echoed from the hallway. People had entered the building. Travis quickly photographed the documents with his phone, then replaced the binder. As he turned to leave, something else caught his eye, a medical file labeled K9 Termination Protocol. He grabbed it, scanning the contents rapidly. There, in clinical language, was the formula for the toxin that was killing Axel, and beside it, the counter-agent meant to be used if a handler was accidentally exposed. Travis photographed these pages as well, then sent the images to Sheriff Carter with a brief text. Evidence of Operation Guardian, illegal experimentation on military dogs. Axel was sentenced to death for protecting a civilian. Toxin and antidote details attached. Just as he pressed send, the door to the records room burst open. Travis spun around to find himself facing two men in tactical gear, weapons raised. "On the ground. Now," one shouted. Travis raised his hands slowly. "I'm unarmed," he lied, keenly aware of the knife in his pocket. "I said on the ground." The man advanced, weapon trained on Travis's chest. In that moment, something remarkable happened. Axel, who had been barely able to walk an hour before, launched himself at the armed man with explosive force. His weakened body somehow found the strength for one critical intervention, knocking the weapon aside as Travis dove for cover. Chaos erupted in the small room. The second man fired, missing Axel, but sending splinters of wood flying as the bullet hit a shelf. Travis seized the opportunity to tackle him, driving him into a filing cabinet with enough force to dislodge the weapon from his hand. The first man struggled with Axel, who, despite his condition, had locked his jaws around the man's arm, refusing to release even as his strength visibly faded. Travis grabbed a heavy binder and swung it at the man's head, connecting with enough force to stun him momentarily. "Axel, release," Travis commanded, and to his surprise, the dog immediately obeyed, collapsing to the floor in exhaustion. Travis retrieved both dropped weapons, keeping them trained on the two disoriented men. "Who sent you?" he demanded, before either could answer. A new voice spoke from the doorway. "I did." Travis turned to find an older man standing there, his silver hair cropped short in a military cut, his bearing that of someone accustomed to absolute authority. Despite never having met him, Travis recognized him immediately from the photograph. "Richard Westfield," he said. The man nodded once, his cold eyes moving from Travis to Axel, who lay panting on the floor, his strength finally spent. You've gone to extraordinary lengths for a dog that was slated for termination, Westfield observed, his voice carrying the polished accent of expensive education. One might wonder why. Travis kept the weapon steady. Maybe I don't believe in discarding lives because they don't follow orders blindly. Westfield's expression remained impassive. That animal was part of a classified military program. His retrieval is a matter of national security. Retrieval. Travis's anger flared. You poisoned him to make sure he'd die even if someone adopted him. That's not retrieval. That's murder. A necessary precaution. K9-47 was a failed experiment with specific training that couldn't be allowed to. His name is Axel. Travis interrupted. And he didn't fail. He made a moral choice your program didn't account for. He chose to protect an innocent. Something shifted in Westfield's eyes, a brief flash of emotion quickly suppressed. You know nothing about this program or its objectives. I know enough. Travis nodded toward Axel, whose breathing had become alarmingly shallow. And I know you have the antidote to what's killing him. Westfield's gaze lingered on the dog. For a moment, Travis thought he saw something like regret cross the man's features. Then his expression hardened again. Why does this animal matter so much to you, Mr. Whitaker? You've known him for, 2 days? You've risked your life, broken numerous laws, all for a dog that was built for a purpose he failed to fulfill. Travis kept the weapon trained on Westfield, but glanced down at Axel. The shepherd's eyes had fixed on him with that same unnerving intelligence he'd displayed from the beginning, even as his body betrayed him. Because he reminds me of something I'd forgotten, Travis said quietly. That sometimes disobeying an order is the right thing to do. Westfield studied Travis with new interest. You were military, Marines, 2 tours in Afghanistan. Recognition dawned in Westfield's eyes. Whitaker, he repeated, as if the name had suddenly gained new significance. Were you stationed at Forward Operating Base Echo in 2017? The question hit Travis like a physical blow. How do you know that? Westfield's face remained unreadable, but something had changed in his demeanor. Because my son James was stationed there too. He died there. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Travis felt as if the floor had tilted beneath him. James Westfield, the young handler in the photograph standing beside Axel, the familiar face that had nagged at Travis's memory. James was your son, Travis said, pieces falling into place. And Axel was his dog. Until James was killed, and K9-47 Axel made a decision that contradicted his training, Westfield's voice remained steady, but Travis could hear the pain beneath it. A decision that made me question everything about the program I'd helped create. Before Travis could respond, the sound of approaching sirens cut through the tension. Sheriff Carter had received his message and was bringing reinforcements. Westfield glanced toward the window, then back at Travis and Axel. In that moment, he seemed to reach a decision. The antidote is in my briefcase in the control room, he said, his voice now urgent. Administer it within the next hour, and the dog might survive. Travis kept the weapon raised, suspicion warring with desperate hope. Why would you help him now? Westfield's mask of authority cracked, revealing the grief beneath. Because my son would have done the same. James believed in this dog, even when I told him attachment to these animals was a liability. His eyes held Travis's, And because I need to know exactly what happened at Phoebe Echo the day my son died. The piercing wail of sirens grew closer as Travis kept his weapon trained on Westfield, torn between suspicion and the desperate need to save Axel, whose breathing had become shallow and irregular, each inhale a visible struggle. "The briefcase," Travis said, his voice tight. "Show me." Westfield nodded once and turned toward the door, moving with the deliberate pace of a man who had spent a lifetime in command. Travis followed, keeping a careful distance, while the two guards remained seated on the floor, subdued but watchful. Axel struggled to his feet, swaying precariously but determined to follow Travis. In the control room, Westfield retrieved a sleek leather briefcase from beneath a desk. He placed it on the surface and opened it, revealing neatly organized files, a laptop, and a small metal case. He removed the case and opened it carefully. Inside lay 3 glass vials containing an amber liquid, packaged alongside syringes and a foam cushion. "This is the counter agent," Westfield explained. "It needs to be administered intramuscularly. 2 injections 30 minutes apart." Travis stared at the vials, painfully aware of how easily Westfield could be lying. The antidote could be anything: another toxin, a faster-acting poison. In trusting this man, he might be signing Axel's death warrant. Yet with the dog's condition deteriorating by the minute, there were few options left. "How do I know this will help him and not kill him?" Travis demanded. Something like respect flickered in Westfield's eyes. "You don't, but he'll be dead within the hour without it." The first sheriff's vehicle skidded to a stop outside, lights flashing through the windows, casting alternating patterns of red and blue across the room. Travis made his decision. "Show me how to administer it," he said, lowering his weapon slightly. Westfield took 1 vial and a syringe, his movements precise as he drew the amber liquid. "The largest muscle mass is best thigh or shoulder." Travis knelt beside Axel, who had collapsed again, his once alert eyes glazed with pain. The bond between them, inexplicable yet undeniable, had formed in mere days. Yet facing the dog's imminent death felt like losing a part of himself. He gently stroked Axel's head, the shepherd's fur damp with sweat from the toxin's effects. "I'm sorry," Travis whispered, though whether to Axel for the pain of the injection or for the risk he was taking, he wasn't sure. Westfield handed him the prepared syringe. Travis took a deep breath and administered the injection into Axel's thigh, the dog flinching slightly, but offering no resistance. The sound of boots on the hallway floor announced the arrival of Sheriff Carter and his deputies. They burst into the room, weapons drawn, taking in the scene with professional efficiency. "Travis," Carter called. "You all right?" "For now," Travis replied, not taking his eyes off Axel. The sheriff assessed the situation quickly, noting the subdued guards, Westfield's calm demeanor, and Travis kneeling beside the clearly ill dog. "Got your message," he said. "Backup's on the way, including federal agents. This just went way above my pay grade." Westfield straightened his shoulders, the posture of a man accustomed to confronting authorities. "Sheriff, I'm prepared to explain everything, but that dog needs immediate medical attention." Carter gestured to one of his deputies. "Call Dr. Caldwell. Tell her we need her at Pine Ridge Medical Center now." "Sarah's out of surgery?" Travis asked, hope flaring. "Awake and already raising hell about getting back to her clinic." Carter confirmed. Tough woman. But Travis's attention had returned to Axel, who had begun to convulse, his powerful body racked with spasms more violent than any before. Foam flecked the corners of his mouth, his eyes rolling back. "What's happening?" Travis demanded, looking to Westfield in panic. "What did you give him?" Westfield's composure cracked. "It's not the antidote. It's his body fighting the toxin while the counteragent takes effect. Hold his head, don't let him injure himself." Travis cradled Axel's head, feeling helpless as the seizure continued. The dog who had stood so tall, who had protected him despite his own weakened state, now lay broken in his arms. Travis felt a rage building within him at Westfield, at the program that had discarded this loyal animal, at himself for not finding answers sooner. "Fight," he urged Axel, voice cracking. "You've made it this far. Don't give up now." The seizure gradually subsided, leaving Axel limp and barely breathing. One of the deputies helped Travis lift him onto a blanket that could serve as a makeshift stretcher. Together, they carried him out to the sheriff's vehicle, the bitter mountain air crystallizing their breath in the darkness. As they settled Axel in the back of the SUV, Westfield approached, now flanked by deputies. "He needs the second dose in 30 minutes, he said, handing the case to Travis. "I've instructed my men to cooperate fully with authorities." Travis studied the man who had created the program that condemned Axel to death, yet now seemed invested in his survival. Why the change of heart? Why help him now? Westfield's gaze drifted to the dog lying unconscious in the vehicle. "Because James wouldn't recognize what I've become." His voice lowered. "My son believed in this dog. He said Axel had something rare, the ability to make moral judgments under pressure. I dismissed it as anthropomorphism. And now I need to know if what happened at Echo Base was what I've feared all these years." Westfield's eyes, so cold before, now held the haunted look of a man confronting long-buried truths. "Was my son's death the result of an order that should have been disobeyed?" The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Before Travis could respond, Sheriff Carter intervened. "Mr. Westfield, you'll need to come with us. Federal agents will want a full statement." "I understand," Westfield replied, his gaze still fixed on Travis. The drive back to Pine Ridge passed in a blur, with Travis cradling Axel's head in his lap, monitoring each shallow breath. The dog's normally alert ears lay flat against his skull, his powerful body reduced to a trembling shadow of its former strength. Twice more seizures racked him, each one leaving him weaker than before. At the 30-minute mark, Travis administered the second injection as instructed, his hands steadier than he felt. There was no immediate change in Axel's condition, no miraculous recovery, no sudden improvement, just the continuing struggle for each breath. Pine Ridge Medical Center was small by urban standards, but it served as the medical hub for the surrounding mountain communities. As they pulled into the emergency entrance, Travis saw Dr. Caldwell waiting, her arm in a sling, a butterfly bandage across her forehead. Despite her injuries, she moved with purpose, directing them to bring Axel to a small treatment room typically used for triage. "I've set up basic veterinary equipment," she explained. her voice steady despite the pain evident in her eyes. "It's not ideal, but it's what we have." As they transferred Axel to the examination table, his body suddenly went rigid. A final, devastating seizure gripped him, more violent than any before. Travis held him, feeling the life force that had drawn them together begin to slip away. "No," Travis whispered, a prayer more than a word. "Please, no." Axel's eyes opened momentarily, finding Travis's face. In that gaze lay something profoundly human: recognition, trust, and what Travis could only interpret as farewell. Then the shepherd's body went limp, his head falling heavily against Travis's hand. The room fell silent. Dr. Caldwell stood frozen, syringe in hand. Sheriff Carter removed his hat, a reflexive gesture of respect. And Travis felt something break inside him, a wall he'd built after Emily's death, after the horrors of war, crumbling in the face of this new, unexpected loss. "I'm sorry," Dr. Caldwell whispered, placing her hand on Travis's shoulder. "The damage may have been too extensive." Travis didn't respond. He simply held Axel's still form, his fingers buried in the shepherd's fur. Remembering the moment their eyes had first met across a crowded shelter, two broken souls, recognizing something in each other that others had missed. Travis sat motionless beside Axel's still form, one hand resting on the shepherd's chest, unwilling to accept the absence of the steady heartbeat that had become his anchor over the past days. The bright lights of the medical center treatment room cast harsh shadows across the dog's face, lending a surreal quality to the moment that Travis desperately wished was merely a nightmare. Dr. Caldwell moved quietly at the perimeter of his awareness, gathering supplies with the efficiency of someone who had faced death before and refused to surrender to it prematurely. Her medical training, both human and veterinary, had taught her that sometimes the line between life and death was thinner than most people realized. "Travis," she said softly, returning to the table, "I need to try something. Move aside." He obeyed mechanically, watching as she prepared a syringe with clear fluid. Without explanation, she injected it directly into Axel's heart, then began chest compressions with her good arm, wincing as the effort pulled at her own injuries. "What are you doing?" Travis asked, his voice hollow. "The toxin causes neural shutdown, but the heart and lungs are affected last," she explained between compressions. "If we can restart the heart while the antidote continues working." She didn't finish the thought, focused entirely on the rhythmic pressure she applied to Axel's chest. Sheriff Carter appeared in the doorway, face grim. "Feds just arrived. They're taking Westfield and his men into custody. They'll want to speak with you when you're ready." Travis nodded absently, his attention fixed on Sarah's efforts. After what seemed an eternity of compression and injections, she stepped back, shoulders slumping in exhaustion. "I'm sorry," she began, then stopped abruptly, her eyes widening. Beneath Travis's hand, he felt it the faintest tremor, followed by the miracle of a shallow breath. Axel's chest rose slightly, then fell, rose again. "He's breathing," Travis whispered, afraid to believe it. Sarah quickly attached a makeshift heart monitor to Axel's leg, and the faint but steady beep confirmed what seemed impossible moments before. "It's weak," she cautioned, "but it's there." The next hours passed in a vigil of desperate hope. Axel remained unconscious, but each hour brought subtle improvements, stronger heartbeat, more regular breathing, and eventually the cessation of the tremors that had racked his body for days. Sarah administered the final dose from Westfield's case, along with fluids and supportive medications. Dawn was breaking over the mountains when the treatment room door opened and Mac Thompson entered, his face bruised, a butterfly bandage across his forehead. Travis rose immediately, tension radiating through his body. "Before you say anything," Mac began, raising his hands defensively, "I didn't betray you. They took me when I started asking questions about that tag." Travis studied his friend's face, looking for deception and finding only exhaustion and sincerity. "You disappeared. No calls. No messages. Hard to call when you're zip-tied in a storage closet," Mac replied with grim humor. "They grabbed me outside my house. Wanted to know what I'd told you about Operation Guardian." He glanced at Axel. "How is he?" "Fighting," Travis answered simply. Mac nodded, understanding the depth contained in that single word. "The feds want to talk to you. I told them you needed time." Travis's gaze returned to Axel. "I'm not leaving him." "They can come to you," Mac conceded. "But there's something you should know first." He hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. "It's about Westfield." Travis felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "What about him? He's cooperating, fully turned over all the program files, naming names, the works. But he keeps asking about you specifically, about Echo Base." The name hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken history. Travis had spent years burying those memories, entombing them beneath layers of determined forgetfulness. "What does Echo Base have to do with any of this?" Travis asked, though a part of him already suspected the answer. Mac's expression softened with rare sympathy. "James Westfield was Axel's original handler. He died during an operation you were part of." The words hit Travis like physical blows, confirming what he'd begun to piece together. "I didn't know the handler's name. We were from different units, brought together for a joint mission. All I knew was that a K-9 team was assigned to us for that operation." Memory surged unbidden the dusty compound. The intelligence that indicated high-value targets. The decision to breach at night. The dog team had been sent in first to clear the entry point. "It went bad," Travis continued, voice distant. "The intel was wrong. The compound had civilians, women, children. We had orders to eliminate everyone inside regardless. The handler, James. He hesitated when he saw the children. His commanding officer ordered him to send the dog in anyway." Travis looked at Axel, seeing him not as he was, now battered and fighting for life, but as he had been then, powerful, alert, a weapon trained to follow commands without question. "The dog wouldn't go in," Travis said softly. He positioned himself between James and the door, refusing to advance. I'd never seen anything like it. James backed his dog's call, said we needed to abort. His CO disagreed. The monitor tracking Axel's heartbeat beeped steadily in the background as Travis forced himself to continue. An argument broke out. During the confusion, one of the targets emerged with a weapon. James saw him first, pushed his CO out of the line of fire. Travis's voice cracked. He died instantly. The dog went berserk, took down the shooter, but it was too late. Mac absorbed this in silence before asking, "Does Westfield know this story?" "I don't think so. The official report was sanitized, just another casualty in a mission gone wrong. The part about the dog refusing the order, about James backing that call." Travis shook his head. "That never made the report. Would have raised too many questions about the nature of the mission, the orders given. And now the dog who saved those civilians, who stood by his handler's moral choice, ended up discarded and scheduled for death," Mac concluded. "Until you found him and called him by name." Travis frowned. "That's the part I still don't understand. I never knew the dog's name during the mission. We just called him the K9. So how did I know to call him Axel?" Mac considered this. "Maybe you heard it during the mission and don't remember. Or maybe what? Maybe some connections don't need explanations," Mac said simply. Before Travis could respond, there was a soft tap at the door. Sheriff Carter entered, followed by a woman in a dark suit who introduced herself as Federal Agent Diana Morgan. "Mr. Whitaker?" she began formally. "I need to ask you some questions about Operation Guardian and your involvement with K947. His name is Axel," Travis corrected automatically. Agent Morgan's expression softened slightly. "Yes, of course. Axel." She glanced at the shepherd lying on the table, then back to Travis. "Richard Westfield has provided extensive testimony about the program illegal testing protocols, experimental training methods, falsified reports to military oversight committees." "Is he under arrest?" Travis asked. "He will be formally charged." "Yes. The extent of those charges depends partly on corroborating testimony." She hesitated. "He's asked specifically to speak with you. He seems to believe you have information about his son's death that wasn't in the official reports." Travis felt the weight of that unspoken history press down on him. "I was there," he acknowledged, "but I'm not leaving Axel right now." "Understood," Agent Morgan replied. "When you're ready, we'll arrange a meeting." She placed her card on the nearby counter. "In the meantime, there's something else you should know. We found Westfield's private records at the facility. They included details about all the dogs in the program, including those slated for disposal." She removed a photograph from her briefcase and handed it to Travis. It showed James Westfield in military fatigues, Axel sitting attentively beside him, both looking directly at the camera. On the back, written in faded ink, was a simple message: "Dad, this is Axel. Best partner I could ask for. He sees things others miss." "Westfield knew," Travis said, realization dawning. "He knew this was his son's dog all along." Agent Morgan nodded. "It appears so. The program was his creation, but after his son's death, something changed. The records show he personally oversaw Axel's retraining despite recommendations to terminate him immediately. When traditional methods failed to override the dog's tendency to make independent assessments, Westfield finally authorized disposal, but with specific protocols that weren't standard. The toxin, Travis concluded, slow-acting, not immediate. Yes, almost as if he was leaving a window open, Mac interjected, the experienced handler understanding the implications. A chance, however small, that someone might intervene in time. Travis looked down at the photograph, then at Axel, whose breathing had strengthened noticeably. The connection between the shepherd and James Westfield was evident in the image, the same bond Travis had witnessed during that fateful night at Echo Base, when dog and handler had stood united in moral certainty despite orders to the contrary. A soft whine drew everyone's attention. Axel's eyes had opened not fully, just narrow slits, but they sought and found Travis's face. His tail moved weakly against the table, a fraction of its normal strength but unmistakable in its intent. Dr. Caldwell moved quickly to check his vitals, her professional demeanor briefly overtaken by a smile of disbelief. His heart rate is strengthening, blood pressure stabilizing. She looked up at Travis, wonder in her exhausted eyes. "I think he's going to make it." Relief washed over Travis in a wave so powerful he had to brace himself against the table. He gently placed his hand on Axel's head, and the shepherd pressed weakly into his touch. "Hey, partner," Travis whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Welcome back." In that moment, as Axel's eyes held his with unmistakable recognition, Travis understood that their connection transcended explanation. Whether fate, coincidence, or something more profound had brought them together. The bond between them had somehow given them both a second chance. 3 weeks later, the mountain winds had softened with the first hints of spring, bringing rain instead of snow to Pine Ridge. The transformation of the landscape mirrored the changes in Travis's life, gradual but undeniable, as if something long frozen had begun to thaw. Travis's garage had undergone its own metamorphosis. A corner that once housed only tools and spare parts now contained a large cushioned bed where Axel spent his days recovering, overlooking the shop through watchful eyes. Customers who brought their vehicles in for repair were greeted by the shepherd's attentive presence, his once gaunt frame filling out with proper nutrition and care. The physical recovery had been slower than Dr. Caldwell initially hoped. The toxin had done extensive damage to Axel's nervous system, leaving him with a slight tremor in his left hind leg that became more pronounced when he was tired. But what he lacked in perfect health, he made up for in determination. Each day brought small victories, walking farther, standing longer, eventually managing the 3 steps up to Travis's cabin without assistance. On this particular morning, Travis sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching as Axel explored the perimeter of the property, nose to the ground, following scent trails with methodical precision. The ritual had become part of their daily routine, a testament to the shepherd's improving strength and Travis's commitment to letting him rediscover life beyond commands and cages. The rumble of an approaching vehicle drew Travis's attention. Sarah Caldwell's Subaru appeared around the bend, splashing through puddles left by the overnight rain. She visited regularly, ostensibly to check on Axel's progress, though Travis had begun to suspect her interest extended beyond her patient. "He's looking better today," she observed as she climbed the porch steps, her own injuries from the car accident now mostly healed. She carried a small cooler that Travis had learned contained new medications and occasionally home-cooked meals she claimed were for Axel's nutrition. "Made it all the way to the tree line and back without resting," Travis replied, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "The tremor's still there, but it's not slowing him down much." Sarah set the cooler down and took the chair beside Travis, accepting the coffee he offered. "The neurological damage may be permanent," she said, her tone professional but gentle. "But dogs adapt remarkably well. He's lucky to be alive at all." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Axel as he completed his patrol and made his way back to the porch. The shepherd climbed the steps carefully, acknowledging Sarah with a gentle nudge of his nose against her hand before settling at Travis's feet with a contented sigh. "Have you thought more about what Sheriff Carter suggested?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. "About the therapy dog program." Travis nodded. The sheriff had approached him a week earlier with the proposal that Axel, once fully recovered, might work with veterans at the county's small VA outreach center. The idea had merit. Axel's military background and remarkable intelligence made him well suited for such work. But Travis had hesitated, protective of the dog, who had already given so much. "I think we'll try it," he said finally. "Start slow. See how he responds. After everything he's been through, he deserves to choose what he wants to do." Sarah smiled. "Most people wouldn't think about what a dog wants. They'd just decide for him." Travis reached down to stroke Axel's head. "Most people haven't seen what I've seen. He's earned the right to make his own choices." The conversation shifted to the events that had unfolded since the night at the Western Slope facility. Operation Guardian had been officially dismantled, its remaining dogs retrieved from various facilities and placed with experienced handlers or in specialized rehabilitation programs. Westfield's cooperation had led to multiple arrests and a congressional inquiry into private military contracting practices. "The federal investigation is still expanding," Sarah noted. "Agent Morgan called yesterday for more details about the toxin composition. They're building a case against everyone involved in the program." "And Westfield?" Travis asked, though he already knew the answer. "Facing multiple charges, but his cooperation is counting in his favor." She hesitated. "Have you decided about meeting with him?" Travis had avoided the question for weeks, declining Agent Morgan's repeated offers to arrange a conversation with Richard Westfield. The complicated emotions surrounding James Westfield's death and Axel's subsequent treatment made the prospect of facing the program's creator deeply unsettling. "I don't know what I'd say to him," Travis admitted. "He created a program that treated these dogs like disposable weapons, that punished Axel for making a moral choice. But he also ensured there was an antidote, left a window open for his survival." He shook his head. "It's hard to reconcile." "Maybe that's exactly why you should meet with him," Sarah suggested gently. "Not for his sake, but for yours, and for Axel." Before Travis could respond, the sound of another vehicle approaching caught their attention. Sheriff Carter's cruiser pulled up beside Sarah's Subaru, and the sheriff emerged, accompanied by a man Travis recognized immediately as Mac Thompson. "Hope we're not interrupting," Carter called as they approached the porch. "Thought you might want to hear this news in person." Travis stood to greet them, noting the unusually solemn expression on the sheriff's face. "What's happened?" "They found the other dogs," Mac answered, his gruff voice carrying equal measures of relief and anger. 5 more from Axel's unit, all slated for disposal, all placed in different shelters across 3 states. "Are they alive?" Sarah asked, professional concern overtaking her. 2 are, Carter confirmed. "The other 3? He trailed off, the implication clear. The FBI raided a secondary facility based on files recovered from Westfield's computers. They're transferring the survivors to a rehabilitation center in Colorado Springs." Travis felt Axel press against his leg, as if sensing the weight of the conversation. "Any of them in Axel's condition. One's pretty bad," Mac replied. "The other's physically stable but completely shut down, won't respond to anyone, won't eat voluntarily. Classic trauma response." The news settled over the porch like a shadow. Travis thought of the rows of kennels at the county facility, of all the dogs waiting for homes or euthanasia. How many others had stories like Axel's, histories buried beneath numbers and clinical evaluations? "There's something else," Carter added, his expression softening. "The town council met yesterday. They've approved funding for a working dog memorial at the Veterans Park. They'd like Axel to be there for the dedication next month, if he's up to it." The gesture touched Travis unexpectedly. Pine Ridge was a small community where everyone knew everyone's business, and the story of Axel's rescue and the subsequent federal investigation had traveled quickly. What surprised him was the town's embrace of the shepherd as something of a local hero. "We'll be there," Travis promised, his hand resting on Axel's head. After Carter and Mac departed, carrying fresh coffee and Sarah's homemade cookies for the road, Travis found himself contemplating how profoundly his life had changed in the span of 3 weeks. The isolation he had cultivated since Emily's death had cracked open, allowing people back in Sarah with her quiet strength, Carter with his gruff concern, even Mac with his complicated loyalty. And at the center of it all was Axel, whose silent presence had somehow spoken loudest, whose trust had demanded reciprocation. "I need to show you something," Travis told Sarah later that afternoon, leading her into the cabin. In the small living room, changes were evident: dog toys carefully selected for their durability, a second cushioned bed positioned near the wood stove, and most tellingly, the photographs that once lay face down now displayed openly on the mantel. Travis picked up one frame that Sarah hadn't seen before, a photograph of a younger Travis in military fatigues, arm around the shoulders of a smiling woman with auburn hair. "Emily," Sarah said softly, recognizing Travis's late wife from around town. "Yes." Travis set the photograph back carefully. "For 3 years I couldn't look at her picture without feeling like I was suffocating. Couldn't talk about her. Couldn't face the memories." He glanced toward the door where Axel lay watching them. Then this guy shows up, carrying his own ghosts, his own trauma, and somehow, he struggled to find the words. "He made it okay to remember," Sarah finished for him, understanding in her eyes. Travis nodded. "I realized I was doing to Emily what the program did to Axel, trying to erase something because the pain of remembering was too much. But memory is all we have sometimes. It's what connects us to who we were, who we loved." Sarah's hand found his, a simple gesture of understanding between two people who had known loss intimately. "That's why you need to meet with Westfield," she said gently. "Not to forgive him, necessarily, but to complete the circle. For James, for Axel, for yourself." The decision crystallized in that moment, clear and necessary. "I'll call Agent Morgan tomorrow." The meeting was arranged for the following week at a federal building in Denver. Travis arrived early, Axel accompanying him as a certified therapy dog in training, a status Sarah had helped arrange that allowed the shepherd to remain with Travis during official proceedings. The interview room was sparse but not unwelcoming: a table, chairs, windows that allowed natural light. When Richard Westfield entered, escorted by Agent Morgan and another official, The first thing Travis noticed was how diminished the man appeared. The commanding presence had faded, leaving behind someone older and wearier than Travis remembered. Westfield's eyes went immediately to Axel, who sat alert beside Travis's chair. Something like wonder crossed his face, followed quickly by a grief so raw it was almost tangible. "He looks like himself again," Westfield said quietly, taking the seat across from Travis. "Healthy?" "Getting there," Travis replied, keeping his voice neutral. "The tremor in his leg may be permanent, but otherwise he's recovered well." Westfield nodded, his gaze still fixed on Axel. "He has his father's eyes," he said, the non sequitur catching Travis off guard until he realized Westfield was speaking of his son. "James always said this dog saw more than the others, understood more. I thought it was projection, handler attachment." "It wasn't," Travis said simply. "No." Westfield's shoulders slumped slightly. "I see that now." The conversation that followed was difficult, at times painfully direct. Travis recounted the events at Echo Base in detail, the flawed intelligence, the presence of civilians, James's decision to trust his dog's judgment, and ultimately, his sacrifice to save his commanding officer. "He died as he lived," Travis concluded, "protecting others, and Axel tried to do the same." Westfield absorbed this in silence, tears tracking unashamed down his weathered face. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady despite the emotion. "I created Operation Guardian after James joined the military. I thought I was building something that would keep soldiers like my son safer in the field." A bitter smile crossed his face. "The irony isn't lost on me that the very program I designed to protect him instead punished the dog who tried to honor his moral code." He reached slowly into his pocket and withdrew a small object, a set of dog tags on a chain. "These were James's. They were returned with his effects, but I could never bring myself to look at them until recently." He held them out to Travis. "I'd like Axel to have them. James would have wanted that." Travis accepted the tags, feeling their weight physical and symbolic in his palm. "Thank you," he said simply. As the meeting concluded and Westfield was escorted from the room, he paused at the door, looking back at Axel one final time. "Take care of each other," he said quietly. "Second chances are rare in this life." On the drive back to Pine Ridge, with Axel dozing in the passenger seat, Travis felt something settle within him. Not closure, exactly, but perhaps acceptance. The chain of events that had brought them together was complex and tinged with tragedy, yet had somehow resulted in redemption for them both. He thought of Sarah waiting at the cabin, of the community that had embraced Axel's story, of the dogs still surviving from the program who might now have a chance at rehabilitation. From the deepest darkness had come unexpected light. As they crested the final mountain pass, the valley of Pine Ridge spread before them, bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. Travis reached over to stroke Axel's head, and the shepherd leaned into his touch, fully present in the moment, neither trapped by the past nor anxious about the future. "Almost home, partner," Travis said softly. And as they descended toward the town that had become a place of healing rather than hiding, Travis realized that for the first time since Emily's death, the word home felt true again. not because of the cabin or the garage or even the mountains that had been his refuge, but because of the connections he had allowed back into his life, connections that had begun with a nameless dog in a shelter, waiting to be remembered. In our twilight years, we often believe our greatest contributions are behind us, our purpose fulfilled. Travis Whitaker thought the same after losing his wife, retreating into solitude, merely existing day by day. But sometimes, life's most profound connections find us when we least expect them, in the form of another wounded soul who sees beyond our carefully constructed walls. Like Axel, discarded because he chose compassion over blind obedience. Many of us have felt cast aside, our value questioned as we age, yet the most beautiful truth awaits. It's never too late for a second chance, never too late to form bonds that heal our deepest wounds. Every one of us carries wisdom earned through struggle, loyalty tested by loss, and hearts still capable of extraordinary love. Travis and Axel remind us that our greatest chapters may still lie ahead, that we can emerge from the shadows of grief stronger for having weathered them, ready to serve a purpose greater than ourselves. As you listen to their story, remember this: your life experience isn't a burden but a gift, and somewhere, someone needs exactly what you alone can offer: understanding, presence, and the courage to begin again.